Sal Intradonado here for recordonline.com. Sunday's paper is going to have a big blowout story on MMA and the legalization of MMA recently. I'm here with Joe Finneran, former fighter, Joe the Finn Finneran, former fighter, and might want to make a comeback now with MMA being legalized in the state. And just talking to Dennis Bermudez, who's a Socrates grad, who is a UFC fighter. He went up to Albany and lobbied for the legalization of MMA. New York is the last state, Joe, to legalize MMA.
It's the last one. It's been a long time coming.
That's incredible. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, all the other states, they've been legal, I think, for 3 or 4 years now. New York, maybe even 5. New York's the last one, and every year since maybe 2009, it was going to get voted on. They always voted it down. It finally became legal about a month ago or a few weeks. So there's going to be a sanctioning body. It's going to bring a lot of money to the area. I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I guess when you're talking MMA, professional MMA, everybody says Madison Square Garden's the place that they want the big fight, and the UFC, I think, is going to have a fight in November there. But there's other venues around the state, Times Union Center in Albany, Arena in Buffalo and Rochester that could host these. Dennis Bermudez told me that the UFC agreed to hold 4 fights a year in New York State. So, you may not get the big fights around here, but maybe you can get some small cards around here.
The Mid-Hudson Civic Center, maybe, can hold some people. Madison Square Garden, that's going to be that, and Las Vegas. Those are the 2 biggest venues, in America. So I think there's going to be some big venues at MSG over there. Yeah,
just talk to me about what it was like back in the day when you were, a pro fighter and you couldn't fight in your home state. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, you always had to drive to another state. You'd always be the, I wouldn't say underdog, but you weren't the fan favorite. If it was a close fight, you lost the fight because you usually fight a guy from hometown, whether it's Philadelphia or Boston. And, some of those cities, they don't like New Yorkers. New York and Boston has a big rival. Philly and New York, Eagles and Giant, they have a bit of a rival. And, it's always a longer trip, a little bit harder to cut weight. You have to drive in the car a long time. And sometimes we'd have to go as far as Ohio or Virginia. This was 6-7 years ago, where it wasn't legal in Pennsylvania yet, or any of the closer states.
Pretty crazy. You told me, I don't know if you want to share this story with us, but that you're fighting Boston, and how you were almost feared for your life getting out of the hotel because you had beaten a Boston fighter in Boston. Talk to us a little bit about that experience.
You guys know New York, Boston, there's a big rivalry, and I wind up fighting a guy from Boston, hometown guy, and I TKO'd him in the first round, and the crowd didn't like it. We had, me and a couple of the other guys and my cornermen, we had to fight our way out of the hotel the next morning and that night, and things got a little bit, fishy. But we made it out. But it's good that it's coming to New York. Well, it's here now, and it's been a long time coming.
Just talk about how this might. I guess technically you might not be retired, but you haven't fought in a few years, and maybe this kind of sparks your interest to get back into fighting again.
It definitely does, because more of my friends will come, more of my fans. It's closer. When I'm fighting in Sandusky, Ohio, I fought. It's an 8-9 hour drive. No one really wants to come out there. Maybe I have a small group of people come, but it's far away. And no one wants to. Now that it's local, closer in New York, it'll attract a lot more of my fan base, some of my friends. There's going to be more gyms opening up. The sport's going to grow more popular, I think, in New York. And, I'm not that old, so maybe a comeback. We'll see.
Yeah, you look at, this could spark, a lot of people getting involved in the sport. I know, you're a former high school wrestler. You look at Chris Weidman. He's a Dennis Bermudez are former high school and college wrestlers, which you wrestled in college too. Just the fact that now you can have a fight in your home state or with your fans there. I
Yeah.
think that'll draw a lot. Just tell me what you think it will take to get back into like MMA, form for you.
I gotta start training more, wrestling, grappling, sparring a bit. I'm in pretty good shape because I do hike, the world's highest mountains. But I think, just get back into training and see how I feel, and we'll go from there. I've been training slowly. I've been going a couple days a week, and see what happens.
Do you think that there are enough of these smaller federations around? Are there smaller federations around where smaller cards can pop up in the area?
It's a possibility. There's a lot of small venues in Pennsylvania and Massachusetts, and Locked in the Cage is one that I fought in. AFL, American Fighting Organization. A lot of them are mostly amateur, and then the last 4 or 5 fights will be pro fighters, or the last 3. They have like pro, amateur, mixed cards, and they're able to do it because they don't have to pay the amateurs, and they only have to pay a couple of the pro guys, so they're able to, it makes dollars and cents with the money for these smaller shows.
Yeah, it's funny, in New York State, it was always like, MMA is so violent, we can't have a violent sport in the state. But talking to Tanner Saraceno, he's a Warwick grad, and he's a fighter in South Carolina, an MMA fighter. He thinks that it was all about the money for the politicians. But from what I'm told by a local assemblyman, there was one guy blocking the bill for MMA to get to the floor. It wasn't even getting into the floor to vote at times. Sheldon Silver was the man who was blocking it from getting to the floor, and once I think he got indicted and for other corruption, and so now it got to the floor, and it was a pretty much Republicans were pretty much all for it. I think he told me 39 of the 43 voted for it that were on the floor. So it seems like now it's where it could take off. Let's see what it's like at Madison Square Garden. Let's see what the bigger venues are like, and maybe once people see that bigger venues, maybe it can grow into the smaller venues. Do you see something like that?
Of course. After they have a couple big fights, the UFC, I'm sure Bellator is going to come to town. That there'll be some smaller venues popping up, or maybe up north there'll be smaller venues starting soon. But as far as the what you said with the Sheldon Silver, it's been a long time for New York, and I think that there's been a kind of a conflict between the boxing community and the MMA community for quite some time now, and New York's always been a very big boxing state, and now they've kind of accepted that MMA is here, it's here to stay. It's not that barbaric title that it once had 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's sanctioned, and and they have rules, and it's a sport. It's
Yeah, everybody seems to be. I was talking to Dennis Bermudez when he went up there to lobby with the legislators. It's like they had to say, like, hey, you're doing boxing is legal, kickboxing is legal, Muay Thai is legal. These are parts of MMA. Why isn't MMA legal? It was kind of silly to a point, So now it's now we're going to see some fights, and hopefully, I don't know if the first professional fight, big card, is going to be at Madison Square Garden in November, but we'll see what happens. And Dennis Bermudez told me, he hopes to, 1,000% he's going to have a fight in New York, and he's coming off a win in February, and he's one of the top fighters in this class in the UFC, so it'll be fun to watch and root maybe for a local guy in these fights, and hopefully, Joe, you get trained up, and you make your return too. That'll be fun.
Of course.
Look, Sunday, like I said, big spread in Sunday's paper on MMA and the road to legalize the sport in New York State. Got Dennis Bermudez, got Joe as part of it, and a lot of other voices in the story. So thanks for joining us, and look for the stories in Sunday's editions of the Times Hour Record. Thanks for stopping by, Joe.